Hey everyone, really quick before the video starts, I now have a Patreon. It's new, it's open, there's a lot of cool perks and rewards for the different tiers. Go check it out if you're interested, there will be a link in the description. Hello everybody, my name is Wilder, and if you watched my Luigi's Mansion 3 video, card in the top right corner if you haven't, then you'll know that Nintendo had a pop-up booth at my local mall recently. As part of this booth, there were two Switch games that you could play early. One was Luigi's Mansion 3, and the other was The Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening. Now I made a first impressions video for Luigi's Mansion 3, but I didn't for Link's Awakening, because honestly, it's the same Zelda we all know and love, with a lot of quality of life improvements that were very needed. It was a lot of fun though, and actually managed to feel pretty fresh and new, and that was all thanks to the impressive visual overhaul. Well, actually, there you go, there's my first impressions. But the real reason as to why I didn't make a first impressions video for this game is because while I was playing it, I got another idea, and that's what you're seeing here. I think that Zelda remakes are a very good idea, especially with the current state of Zelda and with Breath of the Wild's sequel being announced. I love Breath of the Wild, it's my favorite Zelda game, and I think Breath of the Wild gave new life to a series that severely needed an upgrade and a rework. I think it came just in time for me to not fall out of love with The Legend of Zelda, and honestly, in my opinion, it saved the series moving forward. I was one of those people who was not a fan of Skyward Sword at all. I am very glad to have Breath of the Wild on my shelf. And with a sequel to it coming out sometime in the future, if you'd like to see my reaction to that and the entire direct, there is another card in the top right corner. We definitely know that this is the main focus moving forward. Breath of the Wild has changed the standards and playstyle moving forward for the series, for at least a little while. This is a huge plus for me, but I know for a fact that some people don't see it that way. As amazing as Breath of the Wild was, and as much love as it got, I know for a fact that some people weren't happy with the game, and I honestly can see where they're coming from with some of their arguments. Some didn't like that it was open world. That's fair. There are a lot of open world games these days. But I for one love open world games, and I thought it was a nice refreshing take on Hyrule. Some said that the dungeons were lacking in size, puzzles, and that there just weren't enough of them in the game to begin with. I also agree with that. But I think the reason I didn't mind the change was because I felt that it suited the game more than the bigger dungeons, because I would rather be exploring the world of Hyrule than a dungeon. But I won't deny at all that the dungeons in the game were lacking. A big reason as to why people have problems like this is because, yes, some of them are true, but a big reason is because they love the old style of Zelda games, and of course they do. Those games are amazing, and defined the series up to this point. The difference is that they prefer them to a game like Breath of the Wild. They prefer the way they play. Getting to play Link's Awakening early reminded me of what those traditional Zelda games are like, because I haven't played an old Zelda game since before I got my hands on Breath of the Wild about a year and a half ago. The new Link's Awakening game was the first in a long time for me. People are super excited to play this game when it comes out, and some of it goes back to wanting that old style of Zelda. But also, Link's Awakening is just a fantastic game, and playing the remake was great. I honestly can't wait for it to come out as well. I'm super excited. But this brings me to the main point of this video. There are people who are excited for Link's Awakening, and then there are people who are excited for it that didn't like Breath of the Wild. I've seen some people turn completely away from Breath of the Wild and turn right to Link's Awakening because it's more of what they're looking for. And with how it plays and looks, it's a fantastic game. I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild isn't, I'm just saying that we're definitely dealing with two very different generations of Zelda games. I think that remaking Zelda games is a good idea for Nintendo, especially with where Breath of the Wild is taking the series and where it looks like it's headed in the future. Personally, I hope that Breath of the Wild shapes the future of Zelda for a long, long time, because I loved just about everything about that game. I know that there are a lot of people who don't think like that, and I think that remakes could help with this. Because if we're being honest, Zelda's moving forward, and in a very specific direction at the moment. And quite a few people don't want to move forward in that direction. And that remakes like Link's Awakening alongside the main series is a good idea for the community to be happy with two different areas. People who want the new and refreshing side of Zelda will get that with Breath of the Wild sequel that's coming out in the near future, and who knows how many games moving forward. And people who like the traditional style of play and dungeons will be happy with the remakes. One of the biggest reasons as to why I think this could work really well is because Nintendo is good at remastering and remaking games. Look at Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask 3D. Those games were amazing. Look at Wind Waker HD on the Wii U. Not only did they make that game look so much better, I'm not even lying, sometimes I forget how pretty Wind Waker HD is. I just gotta sit here and like compare them side by side once in a while. You know, I mean, look at that, like, that's a huge upgrade. But they also added some much needed quality of life improvements, like the new sail, which was very needed. The gamepad also helped with switching items and not needing to always go into the main menu, just like the touchscreen helped with this in Ocarina and Majora 3D. And now we have Link's Awakening coming to the Switch, and it looks absolutely fantastic with a completely new art style, and again, Nintendo have added quality of life changes. One of those being that you always have your sword and shield equipped and you don't need to bind them to buttons anymore. So now you have more room to have more of your other items equipped. Nintendo knows how their player base has grown and changed, and they know what doesn't work today and what needs to be changed from the past. To a certain extent, anyway. I mean, Nintendo doesn't always have the best track record with stuff like that, but, you know, they try. Not to mention that along with these quality of life changes, these remakes allow a younger generation to experience these wonderful games that we all grew up with. Because I don't know about you, but I know quite a few people who can't sit down and play a game like Tales of Destiny for the PlayStation because of the graphics, even though that game has an amazing story and amazing characters. That game is also super fun even though it's dated. They just can't play it because of how it looks, which is a shame. Remaking a game with a visual overhaul like Link's Awakening allows a younger generation and audience to appreciate games that we grew up with that they didn't get to. Now there's always the argument that people think that remakes are lazy, like the hot topic with Switch ports a few months ago. Some people think that porting games to the Switch is lazy. People also think that remasters and remakes are the same way. In my opinion, this is a bad way of looking at it, especially when you take into account the sales numbers for some of these games. I mean, the Wii U games that were ported to the Switch sold way better than they originally did. The Switch is outselling the Wii U in its own library. I know, this is mostly due to the Wii U selling horribly, but this still means that the ports sell well. So there's no reason for Nintendo to stop. Pikmin 3, Pikmin 3, Nintendo, Pikmin 3. I know for a fact that Link's Awakening is going to sell fantastically well, and I think it's going to be worth all the work that went into it when they get those sales numbers back. Because you can't look at a game like Link's Awakening for the Switch and call that lazy just because it's Link's Awakening again. The visuals alone make that argument no longer valid. I'm hoping that Nintendo sees the sales numbers and the love for this fantastic game, and gets interested in remaking some more Zelda games that never really got to shine. Because I guarantee that this new Link's Awakening will feel at least a little like a fresh new experience because of how different it looks. That's how it felt for me while I was playing it. Because of the new stuff they added, the little things they changed, and maybe even the details that weren't highlighted enough in the original, that'll still be in this remake. And for the people who didn't like Breath of the Wild, or for those that felt it didn't sit well with them, and wanted something more traditional, I think the direction that Link's Awakening has taken is a really good direction for Nintendo to go in alongside the main series. I know that Breath of the Wild was their first big adventure away from the traditional Legend of Zelda style, and with its sequel coming out, I think that they're going to listen to quite a few people and learn what the player base liked and didn't, and try to change some of that. So while Nintendo is trying to evolve Breath of the Wild's sequel, dungeon-wise, story-wise, and character-wise, into a game that will have a nice middle ground for fans of both Breath of the Wild and the more traditional Zelda games, I think that having those remakes alongside the main series, while that happens, seems like a really good way to make everyone happy. And if I'm being completely honest, I just want more old Zelda games to be remade like Link's Awakening. Like, that game looks beautiful, and it was so much fun to play. I just want more remakes. I mean, can you blame me? Anyway, what do you think about everything I've said here? What do you think about how Link's Awakening looks? Are you for remakes? Are you against remakes? Did you like Breath of the Wild's new and interesting take? Or did it stray too far from the traditional Legend of Zelda style for you to like? Let me know in the comments down below. Down in the description there are links to my new Patreon, my Discord, and my Twitter, so go check those out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.